Coach, you mentioned yesterday that the Utah Jazz was the best team in the league right now. Why do you think people don't give them the credit that they probably deserve?
Well, I think, people will always question teams that may not have the traditional look of a championship team. And by that, I mean no transcendent superstars. I think historically, people sort of look at championship teams and they project into the future. They project how the playoffs are going to go. And, people will say about Utah, they'll say, well, who's going to take over a playoff game down the stretch? They're a really balanced team. They pass the ball, they shoot it. They have, one of the best offenses in the league, one of the best defenses, top three in both, I think. So historically that matters. If you're top five in both offense and defense, you are a championship contender. But I think until you see a team like Utah, until you see it, if you're an NBA observer, then you're going to question it. That's just the way it is. I probably felt that way a little bit about our team, in 15. I don't know that anybody really believed we could win the championship. Steph, as good as Steph was, he wasn't, probably in the space he is now in terms of his superstar status. I played on a Cleveland team for years that was really, really good back from like 89 to 92. We had Larry Nance and Brad Daugherty, Mark Price. We had a lot of great talent, and we were a really good two-way team. And we had a lot of success. We didn't quite get to the championship, but there are plenty of teams historically where they had a great run and were championship contenders and did win, but then there's some that didn't. And so it's just if you're an observer, you look at that and you make predictions. And for Utah, they're, like I said, they're kind of where we were 5 years ago. Nobody's going to believe it until they do it. And so all they have to do is use that chip and that edge and keep doing what they're doing and put themselves in a great spot.
They take like 43 threes a game and make like 40% of them. That was kind of what happened to you guys in Utah. It was like that first quarter avalanche. How do you stop that better?
Yeah, we have to do a better job of that. It starts in transition. You can't turn the ball over or lose your man in transition. And because they spread the floor so well and they've got multiple players who can shoot that thing. So starts there, and then in the half court, we've got to do a better job of not letting them pick us apart. And so we've got a game plan that we've put together. Hopefully we'll cover up that 3-point line better tonight or today.
Ready for Coach Kerr. Name and affiliation, please.
Hi, Steve. Kareth Burke, NBC Sports Bay Area. You've spoken with fondness or respect for Quin Snyder before. How can you tell when a team is well coached?
Well, when they play hard night after night and they're organized at both ends, and that's what you see with Utah. And I think the continuity really matters. I think that's one of the big advantages that you see around the league when a team has been together for a few years. You can see how connected they are, and that's where Utah is right now. They've been building to this point, over several years, and they're in a really good place right now.
Draymond's been kind of critical of the testing amount the last few days. What's the schedule been like from your vantage point? And obviously, I assume Utah's going through the same thing, but how has it affected your prep and practice times and everything in the last 24 hours?
Well, we've moved practice times, as you guys know, back this year to 3:30, just to accommodate the later test. Guys are coming in sometimes 8 in the morning and driving home and then coming back to practice. at 3:30, and then testing after practice. Last night we had to test at 10 o'clock, between 10 and 11, because of the start time to today's game. So, yeah, it's not a whole lot of fun, but it's the way it is. We got to do it.
Are you feeling it today, Steve, with a late test and then daylight saving, losing an hour?
Yeah, it does feel weird. It's amazing how that hour always makes you feel in either direction. So it sort of feels too early to be playing a basketball game right now. But this is what's on the schedule, and we're all here, so we'll get ready to go.
What's your sense of where your team's at? I mean, you do obviously what we're talking about, but you also had two practices leading up to this, 2 off days. What do you sense out of your team right now?
I like the fact that we had 2 good days of practice. Schedule, the travel over the last few weeks was not easy. Obviously, it was great to get an all-star break, but then you follow that up with one practice without everybody there and a blowout loss. So we needed a couple of good days of practice. So we got that, and I think the team's in a good frame of mind, and hopefully it'll show the way we play today.
Hi, Coach. Nicole Herena from TAT Deportes.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. What is your big priority today on defense against Jazz, especially with players like Mitchell, Mike Conley?
Yeah, I mean, Utah is really good in transition. They get a lot of three-point shots. If you're not sharp with your transition defense, identifying where the shooters are. And then in the half court, they run a lot of really good stuff. They put Gobert in a lot of ball screens, and they have multiple players who can shoot and pass. So they're a very balanced offensive team, and they put you in a lot of difficult positions.
Steve, Eric Walden from the Salt Lake Tribune. As someone who's spent time in both a front office and then on the bench coaching, I was wondering if maybe you could just speak to kind of the challenge that is involved in making a transition like that, similar to what Jazz assistant Dell Demps is trying to do right now.
Well, I think it's an advantage, Eric, to do both, because you get a really good glimpse at how an organization operates. And if you go from management to coaching, like I did, or like Dell is doing, you already have a great sense of how the interaction has to play out between the coaching staff and management, and how important those relationships are. And so when you have that experience, it gives you the view that you need to really build good, solid relationships within the organization that helps everything function smoothly.
Hey, Quinn. Sorry, just getting set up. Just kind of a general question. How much, to what extent can you use analytics, and do you use analytics in play calling decisions?
Well, we do. And it's something that, particularly, there are certain situations where I feel even more confident. And we've tried to use them to, as the season goes on, to even minimize or condense what we do, and specifically side out of bounds after free throw. Those situations are different, but we know where we rank with dead balls and ATOs and side out and under out. Under out was a concern of mine, really for all of last year and the beginning of this year. So you try to tweak certain things. I think the important thing is that, like a lot of things analytically, it can give you really an idea of where to look. And there may be something that doesn't show up as being efficient because we're not making a shot. And if you're getting a good shot, that's, I think, a better way to look at it. A lot of times we can, the best players are the ones that are bad, that the players make shots. And sometimes coaches get credit for a good play. And maybe it's not a good play. It's just Jordan Clarkson making a tough shot.
David James, KUTV.
Quinn, given the way the the team played in those last 7 games or 8 games going into the break, and given the way the Houston game went, how important is this road trip towards establishing a trend and allow the clubs?
I think it's important, David, in a larger sense, though. I think really for me that this season, there's like 3 phases, and the first phase was, the first half up until break. We're entering into a second phase, and then, as everybody knows, going into the playoffs, everybody's 0-0. So not looking beyond this phase, and also not looking back to what happened before All-Star break. Certainly, there's things you can take with you, both good and bad, and I think the key is to look at where you can improve. We've got enough feedback on that from competition itself, and see if you can continue to get better and not measure yourself. I don't even want to measure ourselves in terms of pre-All-Star break, post-All-Star break. I want to continue to do that game by game, but I think it's helpful conceptually to think of it that way. And with respect to the Houston game, that was a game where we didn't feel like we played well. We did lead by 20 at one point, and we stopped executing. We lost our focus. And obviously, I mentioned it post game that was something that I think that we've done a lot better job at. So something as simple as that, regardless of whether you win or lose, being able to sustain focus and effort. And we'll continue to be aware of those things, and I think be honest with ourselves as a team of how we're getting better.
Ben Anderson, KSLSports.com.
Quinn, Steve Kerr said this was one of the more difficult setups, having to test last night and then daylight savings and then a matinee game. How does this set up for you compared to some of the more difficult ones?
Yeah, this next week or so, schedules are even more difficult. Steve mentioned there's a California test as well. So there's just layers of testing, and it doesn't allow you to have time in the gym. So you have to figure out, I think, other ways to prepare. And some of the preparation, the toll of the protocols, the fatigue of a mask, particularly when guys have been away for a little bit, you come back and then the standards are even greater. But it's something everybody's going through. We understand why. Everybody's trying to stay safe and healthy so we can continue to play. But again, as Steve said, I would agree that this is another level, and we've got to keep focused while we're doing it.